Good morning. I hope you're having a good day. We're in the middle of a 4-day weekend that started with turkey and moved into the most intense shopping days of the year. I hope that all of that is going well for you. But our subject this morning is not turkey or shopping. Instead, we're focused on politics and government. The elections are behind us, and the winners are ready to take on their responsibilities. We'll talk with one of the winners starting right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, our guest this morning is State Representative Bo Lefebvre. The Republican legislator first entered the political arena 2 years ago when he was elected to represent Delta, Dickinson, and Menominee counties in the Michigan House of Representatives. He was elected to his second term on November 6th. Representative Lefebvre, welcome back to the Ryan Report.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good to see you again. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This was your first re-election campaign. How did that feel?
It was a little bit different than the first time. The first time, you don't really know what to expect. The second time, you almost feel like a seasoned veteran. I know I'm not, but it really was a different experience. I was honored and humbled to receive so much support.
You knocked on a lot of doors. You had a lot of meetings. What were the kind of things you learned from voters in that process?
I think the biggest thing that I realized over the last 2 years is you come into being a candidate thinking you know all the answers and thinking you can fix all of the problems and you know what all the problems are. And then you knock on, I believe we hit over 15,000 doors, and you talk with voters and people that you're going to work for, hopefully. And you realize there's a lot more to it than you thought when you got into it. So that was one of the big things, is I had to expand my realm of understanding and knowledge of topics.
Were there one or two issues that people seemed particularly concerned about?
I did enter the campaign thinking that the biggest issue on people's mind 2 years ago was car insurance reform. And after 2 years, that still seems to be the biggest issue in the Upper Peninsula. Paying $1,000 a year more than our friends in Wisconsin, still the biggest problem that a lot of people have on their minds.
We'll talk some more about that as we go along. You now have one term under your belt. You've spent a term in Lansing. Were there surprises as to how things worked down there, good or bad, I guess?
I shouldn't have been surprised. This was a rookie mistake. I got my degree in political theory international relations and political economy. So I knew what our founders had set up. They had a system of checks and balances that was supposed to make the legislative process move slowly. And I got into Lansing thinking we were going to be able to fix everything in 2 years, and it was going to be wonderful. I mean, we had the governorship, we had the House and Senate under one-party control. And I forgot the lessons that my degree at Michigan State taught me, that it's supposed to be slow. So I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was surprised at how slowly things got moving.
And certainly, even though you had a big majority, especially in the Senate, and a majority in the House, not all Republicans think alike, or just like not all Democrats think alike, I guess.
If we had a UP majority, so many more things would have gotten done. I mean, it doesn't matter if Sarah Cambenzi has a D next to her name and Gregory Markkinen has an R, but the UP delegation is lockstep together on 90% of issues. We could have gotten so much more accomplished with a UP majority, but we're never allowed to have that because of our population.
And one of the things that did happen, even though there was the so-called blue wave, and at the statewide level, Democrats did very well.
Yeah.
Republicans did maintain control in the House and Senate for the next term. I assume it's going to create an interesting situation now, a new one for you, with a Democratic governor and Republican legislator.
Well, they call it divided government, and I don't know who coined that term, and I don't really like it. I'm not divided with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, and I'm not going to be divided with Gretchen Whitmer, our new governor-elect, Gretchen Whitmer. We need to be united, working for the people of Michigan. We have a mandate. Gretchen Whitmer, Governor-elect Whitmer, has a mandate to get things done, as do I, as does Greg Markkinen, and Sarah Cambenzi, and Ed McBroom, and Speaker Chatfield. We are going to get things done together. It doesn't matter what party is next to the name of whomever's in office, but it is going to be a little bit different.
You know, you mentioned Greg Markkinen a couple of times, and he, of course, was elected in the 110th district, creating a situation which I think is pretty unprecedented you know, as I think back, as far back as I can think, where the whole UP delegation is Republican with the exception of Sarah Cambenzi, who's a Democrat.
I don't think it's ever happened. I think we had a representative from the 110 8 years ago that was a Republican, and at that time we had I don't know, actually, yeah, it might have happened one time, but not more than 2 years.
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure the state Senate seat was in Republican hands at that time, but
I don't think it was.
Perhaps.
No, you're right.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that all develops. But as you say, you kind of all work together anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it was interesting because when I was in my first term, still am, you know, we had Sarah Cambenzi and Scott Dianda who would do a lot of things together, and they worked on a lot of issues. And my closest Republican colleague in the House was Speaker Pro Tem Lee Chatfield. So, of course, I had Senator Casperson. He had some serious health issues that he's thankfully working through. But for me, I felt almost alone a lot of the time when I was back home because I couldn't call Lee Chatfield over to come help me out 230 miles away at some event. So now I've got Greg Markinen. Of course, I've always had Sarah Cambenzi to work with, but I'm glad that Ed McBroom is in there as well. Senator Casperson is a heck of a hard worker and a good man. He will be missed in the legislature.
You mentioned Lee Chatfield a couple of times, and we should pass on that he will be the Speaker of the House in the next session.
Yes, he will. Lee Chatfield is from Pellston area, lives 14 miles south of the border, I call it, in Troll Land, but he represents 2 counties in the Upper Peninsula. And one of my biggest supporters in the Michigan House, propelling UP issues forward, was a guy that technically lives below the bridge. He was Speaker Pro Tem, technically number 2 in charge of the House last term. Now he's the big dog. And we've got somebody at the top of the leadership ticket in charge of the entire House of Representatives that is going to be working diligently every day for the Upper Peninsula. What a great time to be able to get things done. I just can't wait to get started.
Okay, we'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes. Back with more on today's show after we take this 2-minute break. Our guest this morning is State Representative Beau Lefebvre, recently reelected to his 2nd term. We were talking before we broke away about the new Speaker of the House, the fact that he does have a UP connection. Part of his district is in the Upper Peninsula. I note that he probably is also the youngest speaker in the history of Michigan.
You know, apparently the Upper Peninsula has a propensity in the last couple of years to send young people to the State House. And I'm honored that my colleagues selected such an intelligent man to be the Speaker of the House. Lee Chatfield is such a great guy that fights every day for both peninsulas. But he never forgets where his biggest geography is, and that's in the Upper Peninsula. And really helps to fight to get things done for us up here.
You know, as we get into this, what kind of leadership will he provide? Do you think? Will he be setting a different agenda? The Speaker does have a lot to do with setting the agenda.
Absolutely. You know, Speaker Chatfield is always interested in making sure that the UP gets something done. And what a lot of people don't necessarily think of is when you think I'm a state representative, I can get things done, I can do whatever we need to get done. You know, I have 90,000 people that I work for, I should be able to get whatever we need for the Upper Peninsula. The difficulty is when we're geographically challenged in the UP when it comes to state governance, because my colleagues down south can call up 3-4 of their colleagues and have coffee in each other's kitchen and talk about Macomb issues, Oakland issues, Wayne issues, whatever they may be. In the Upper Peninsula, that takes some serious logistics to get done. So having somebody that takes my call, as of course Speaker Leonard did, but Chatfield knowing a little bit more about UP issues and what we need funding for our ski jumps. We need to make sure Copper Peak and Pine Mountain ski jump and the luge gets taken care of, economic development, things like that. Already knowing that when he gets to the table is very beneficial and helpful.
It's probably a little too early for this conversation, but now that you've spent a couple of years in Lansing, and knowing that you're term limited, are you thinking you'd like to spend more time in government, because you have a big lifetime ahead of you after you leave office?
Yeah, I sure hope so. I think I'll be term limited If I decide to seek re-election, I'll be term limited at 30. So there's a lot more that I can do with my later years, but I want to continue to serve the people of the Upper Peninsula, whether that be in the public sector, I don't know. But I certainly think that I want to finish my law degree. I have 2 years left in that. How and when I do that, I think I'll figure out sometime. But for the time being, I have 2 years where my sole priority is working for the 300,000 people plus of the Upper Peninsula and the 10 million in Michigan.
Okay, now we have a special situation this year with the lame duck session, so-called. The time left before the new representatives, senators are elected and the new governor takes office. There will be an effort to get some things done. From what I understand, auto insurance will probably be back on the agenda in this lame duck session. Do you think something may happen there?
Car insurance reform is always on the table in lame duck. Unfortunately, for the last 40 years, it's never been moved across the finish line. But they've never had me in a lame duck session to try to kick everybody in the butt and get something done. There's some procedural tactics that I'm aware of that can put something on the front burner, if you will. Of course, I'm going to do everything I can to make that what we get accomplished in lame duck. History is not on my favor on this, but I'm going to keep working hard on that issue.
There are still people who are concerned. Obviously, many people are concerned about what they're paying for auto insurance, but they're also concerned about what the purpose that current plan serves and maintaining that possibility. Is that possible?
It absolutely is possible to maintain lifetime unlimited health care if you're in an auto accident. Michigan's unique that it mandates by law that everyone buy a lifetime unlimited no cap health care policy if you're injured in an auto accident. Wisconsin mandates $20,000 of coverage and we have $1 trillion. What I'd prefer to do is allow drivers to have the choice of continuing the current coverage that they already have or buying something less than unlimited, thus saving a lot of money and doing cost containment and savings in there, where even if you continue to choose unlimited, you're going to save money. House Bill 5013, which I was very much in favor of, would have done a 10% cut for anybody that wanted to maintain lifetime unlimited benefits. And if you wanted something less than that, you'd save 40%.
So why would it be more difficult to get it done during this lame duck session?
Only because timing. We only have 3 weeks of actual time to get things done, unless we cancel Christmas and our New Year celebration and we got back to work and never left town, which is not what we do. We always spend a couple days in Lansing and then we go back to the people that sent us there and listen to thoughts and concerns. So unless we want to do Sunday committee hearings, we really only have about 3 weeks to get things done. If a bill hasn't moved from one chamber to the other, there's also the 5-day layover rule, which says if it passes one chamber, it must sit on the back burner. It can't be touched for 5 full days. So sometimes you use what's called a vehicle. But we have very strict rules in our Constitution that dictate what, when, and how bills can move forward.
Okay, we have more to talk about in this lame duck section and in the section ahead in just a couple of minutes. Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. Our guest this morning is State Representative Beau Lefebvre. We were talking about this lame duck session. During the last session, the legislature passed changes to minimum wage and paid sick leave. And the thought was then that it was done because voters might have approved something different. And this way the legislature would have a chance to deal with that issue. It would appear that if they're going to do that, it would have to be during this lame duck session, because it's probably unlikely the new governor would be willing to sign that. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know if Governor-elect Whitmer would sign any given piece of legislation or not. I frankly don't know necessarily if Governor Snyder will sign any given piece of legislation when I introduce it. The thought behind the paid sick leave proposal was that it was so poorly written as to, if somebody were to not show up to work for 3 days and then get fired a couple weeks later or months later for a completely unrelated issue, current law says that the presumption is that you fired them as retribution for not showing up to work and being sick 2 months ago. So there were inherent problems in that ballot proposal. And the easiest way to fix those problems that all of us agree on is to adopt the piece of legislation, and then the legislature maintains its authority under the Constitution to make reasonable changes and make it better for everybody involved. So both of those proposals need some tweaks to make them work much better. On the minimum wage proposal, if the legislature does nothing, our servers that are tipped wages will go up from $3 to $12 an hour, which means tipping is gone. The average server in Michigan gets $18 an hour right now. If you factor in tips, if those go away, that's a $6 an hour decrease. So there does need to be changes to both of them.
And this will likely be in the lame duck session.
I think that there will be. There's no consensus on either side on it at all right now.
Another issue that perhaps some will want to consider is the Enbridge proposal to build a tunnel.
Yes.
And the fact that Governor-elect Whitmer again has seemed to express opposition to that plan. Will there be an effort to get something done in this lame duck session?
I don't know if it's necessary, but our problem seems to be that Governor-elect Whitmer and our Attorney General-elect Dana Nessel want to shut down Line 5 and leave the UP freezing to death with no ability to heat our homes with natural gas or propane. We've got a really good deal that was offered and accepted by all parties involved to build a tunnel that's $300 million of boring and technology that's going to be put into the straits to make sure it's safe. And it's going to provide jobs to the Upper Peninsula and downstate, huge economic development, and make it much safer. I am not willing to flip a coin as to whether or not the new administration is going to allow a good deal for the Upper Peninsula to get done. So I believe Senator Casperson introduced a bill, the good senator from Escanaba, that would kind of codify that deal and make sure that it gets done. Very supportive of whatever we can do to protect the environment and make sure that our homes get heated.
Okay. What about the new session? What are going to be some of the issues that you're going to be really concerned about as going forward?
Well, obviously car insurance reform is a big issue. I don't have to mention that. We need to make sure that we're not criminalizing substantially petty offenses. I'm looking at 186 criminal statutes in the DNR regulations. Like if you have a son or a daughter with learning disability and you allow them to drive a four-wheeler, the parent can go to jail for 90 days. I want to repeal a bunch of those stupid laws. We need criminal justice reform. If a spouse, a wife has a concealed pistol license, leaves the pistol in her truck or her car, which is completely legal, husband comes in frantic and says, honey, the car won't start. I got to drive the kids to school. She forgets the guns in the car, throws him the keys. He drives to school, gets pulled over, doesn't have a CPL. They search the vehicle. He just committed a 5-year felony. We need to clean up some of these old, archaic laws. And on the Judiciary Committee, which I serve now and hope to continue to serve in, we're going to get some of those things done.
Do you know what your committee assignments will be in the new term?
We don't. I currently serve on energy, insurance, natural resources, and judiciary. I love those committees. I think they fit the Upper Peninsula very well, my 3 counties, so I would like to maintain those 4. Everything is well within the new incoming members' discretion as to which committee assignments are. We might condense a few committees down, we might expand them out, but generally speaking, I think that's a good realm for me to maintain.
We have less than half a minute, but budgets are always a big issue. Will they continue to be an issue in the year ahead?
Oh, I can't imagine it's going to be any less of an issue. Before Governor Snyder was elected 8 years ago, we would never balance the budget on time. The Constitution sets a deadline for us to get it done, and our previous governor never got it done on time. So without having a Republican in the executive office kind of steering the ship forward, I think it's going to be difficult to get it done on time, but it's my job to get that done, and I'm going to make sure it does get done.
I always run out of time before I run out of questions when we talk. Good to have you with us again this morning.
Thank you so much.
I'll be back with some other thoughts for you in just a couple of minutes. Well, this year's election is now 3 weeks behind us. We've been taught since we were kids that voting is important, and it is. But the elections we now experience have become difficult to endure. And this past week, we had the chance to enjoy another Thanksgiving Day. For many people, that involves the gathering of families, a turkey dinner with all the trimmings, and a day of watching parades and football on television. So this year, what do we have to be thankful for? Well, that election is over, and that's a relief. Elections and voting are important, but do the campaigns have to last so long? And do they have to be so nasty and angry? A stranger in our country watching the television commercials would think we elect some pretty terrible people based on what the negative ads have to say. Now that it's over, we have some candidates who are thankful they came out on top. And then there are others who had to settle for being thankful for a turkey dinner. Thanksgiving is also about football, and the Detroit Lions are thankful. They got a new general manager a couple of years ago, a new coach this season, and the highest paid quarterback in the league. Of course, they're still with a losing record, but you can't have everything. The Green Bay Packers are thankful they have Aaron Rodgers. When you have a team that's not the best the Packers have seen in recent years, it's good to have one of the game's best quarterbacks to keep you in the game and to even win a few. And this is the time of year when we expect to see the changing of the seasons. TV6's Carl Bonak is thankful. He loves snow, and it came early this year. I'm not sure he loves shoveling it, but that's all part of the deal. The merchants are thankful. This is their busiest time of year. We've been bombarded with Black Friday announcements for weeks now. I'm not sure those merchants are all that excited about sales that start in the middle of the night, but that also comes with the territory. How about you? What are you thankful for? I hope there are many things you can put in that thankful category. And I hope one of them is that you can be here each Sunday morning to watch the Ryan Report. I know I'm thankful that you're here each week. I'll be back in a minute. Before we go this morning, a reminder that you can get the news anytime at uppermichigansource.com, where you can also see today's show again starting tomorrow afternoon. Many past editions are available right now. Thanks to State Representative Beau Lefebvre for joining us this morning to offer some insights as we wind down one legislative session and get set to start the next one. And thank you for joining us. Hope you'll plan to be back again next Sunday morning.